right, the initial autopsy report on Heath Ledger was ruled inconclusive at this point. There were prescription pills apparently that were found in the room, and now police are saying that they're investigating the possibility that there was an overdose here. They say it's going to take about 10 days, as we've seen in similar cases, until they really get a toxicology report and they can understand what was at work in his body at the time. But what can we learn from some of his behavior when he was on camera but out of character? In some interviews, he appears to sort of be uncomfortable. And we were looking at some of these interviews this morning and wondering if this is any sign of what was going on in him internally, medically, emotionally, or was he just very shy, which is another report that you hear a lot about. Take a look at this piece of video.
You're forced into kind of respecting yourself more. You learn more about yourself through your child, I guess. And I think you also look at death differently. Like, it's like a catch-22. Like, I feel good about dying now because I feel like I'm alive in her, but at the same hand, you don't want to die because you want to be around for the rest of her life.
Dr. Gabriella Cora is a psychiatrist. She specializes in depression, anxiety, and stress management. She joins me now live from Miami. Doctor, when you look at that tape, he's rubbing his eyes, and he does sort of, touch his face a lot. And what does all that behavior tell you about what's going on inside this young man?
He does look fidgety, he does look nervous, and he's talking about very deep emotions and feelings about death, about surviving, about wanting to live through his daughter growing up. So these are very deep things that this young actor was talking about.
Let's take a look at another piece of tape. In this one, he's on the red carpet at the movie A Knight's Tale talking to Fox's Juliette Huddy. All right, we're going to roll that in just a second. Let's bring in our A-list panel first and introduce you to everybody. Ali Wentworth is an actress. She stars in the Starz Network show Head Case, which premieres its second season. Very successful first season, and the second season starts tonight. Janine Pirro is a Fox News judicial analyst, and Chris Wilson is a Republican pollster who's joining us from Washington today, and Fox's Wild Card, co-host of Good Day New York, Jody Applegate. And now let's take a look at the next instant replay. We can all sort of think about it a little bit.
Yeah, of course you're nervous. You have no idea what's going on, You're nervous, you're scared, you're excited. It's like everything. It's all rolling into one. It's yin and yang, It all balances out somehow.
So, Doctor, and there again, he seems nervous, he seems agitated. Is this just a young actor who's having a hard time absorbing all of the attention that he's getting? And I know you can't diagnose someone by looking at these videos, so I'm just obviously asking you your impression of what you're seeing and hearing here.
Absolutely, and this would be a very appropriate time for him to express his joy and nervousness and being scared about being exposed to the world with his new film. So part of it could be very normal, but what we want to know is this a normal behavior, or has it shifted? Does it go up and down? And is it relevant, or is this someone who just gets very anxious, very nervous when exposed to some of these events? But it would be somewhat appropriate to his age and to the event.
Certainly. And let me ask you one last medical question before I get to the panel. When you look at, the combinations of drugs that might have been in his body, there was a sleep drug in there. Does an emotional, nervousness or anxiety combined with those do something chemically in your body?
Sometimes we can see this fidgetiness as part of being nervous or being anxious, but sometimes we have to also question whether or not this is the presence of tics that become somewhat worse during anxiety. Tics can sometimes be inherited, sometimes they can be triggered by also medications, and stress can make tics worse too. So there could be a combination of things, and it will be hard to tell now, although with the results we may be better able to tell what happened.
All right, let's take one look at another clip, and then I want to ask Jody Applegate something. Let's look at this together. This is just a video clip that we're going to see, and in it you see, just very, and obviously, we're not doctors on this panel, but there's just always a lot of physical behavior. Jody Applegate, you've interviewed a lot of movie stars and done a lot of interviews in the course of your time in this business. Do his responses seem unusual to you, or typical of somebody young and up and coming?
Well, he does look sort of relaxed, ironically, in the sense that he's very casual and his hair is kind of messed up, frankly. That looks like a movie junket setting, and we've done those where the movie star sits in a room and everybody from Toledo and Pittsburgh and everywhere else comes in, you get to sit and ask you a few questions. So the actors often get sort of fidgety and uncomfortable because it's sort of an awkward way to interview people, although that's kind of how it's done in the business. So I would sort of tend to not want to read too much into it. He might have been such a good actor because he was such a reflective, sensitive person.
Very intense, obviously, person and personality. Janine, from a legal perspective, who knows if there were illegal drugs in we don't know any of that yet. How do the police and the forensics, how does all of that weigh in this kind of case?
Well, it's interesting. Everyone thought that with the autopsy we would know right away what happened. Well, of course we weren't going to know what happened. We have to wait for the toxicology report to find out whether or not we're talking about legal drugs, prescribed drugs, illegal drugs, a combination of drugs that accidentally killed him. And then we have to look at the surrounding area, the pills, who gave him the pills, whether or not there are emails, cell phones, kind of a psychiatric autopsy as well as the physical. So there's a lot that goes into this. Think Anna Nicole Smith. I mean, it was prescribed drugs, but at the same time, it was that interplay. But what's interesting is we talk about his talking about his child and wanting to live or die. I don't think that's unusual at all. I think that on the birth of our first child, we become very reflective of our own mortality and then pull back and say, but I want to live forever and I want to be healthy now to be with my children.
And that's exactly what his family has said. They say this is not a young man who wanted to kill himself. I think there's a lot of speculation out there about maybe this was an accident as a result of this medication and that he had a lot to live for, certainly, and he'll be very missed in Hollywood and, of course, across the country. And this Batman movie that looks like it's a fascinating last testament to his talent. So we'll look forward to seeing that and remembering him as well. All right, we're going to talk a little bit of politics after this break. The big battle in the